So welcome to TFX. So the first part I wanted to show everyone is the dashboard. We know accountants love their dashboard, so we thought this would be a good place to start. So the idea is that you'll be able to build your own dashboard regardless of what kind of process you want. So if you've got a customer and you want to have a dashboard for that client that shows you certain metrics, you'll be able to do so. So we've got an example here of an audit. So we can see that this is anonymized data, but we've got a company called Company 50. We've got an audit complete, and we've got a dashboard that you can share with the client so they can view in real time what kind of data you have, and you can view it yourself. So this was a wages audit that we performed, and we had some key metrics displayed here. So there was one around the number of records we reviewed, the underpayments. So these are some critical metrics that we wanted to display to customers, number of employees affected, findings, etc. It gives them the opportunity to view in real time how the audit's progressing, whether it's fully completed like this one is, or it's still in progress. And then we can add in some extra cool insights, such as forecasting, where we can show the number of findings per audit cycle, and then it gets forecasted further. And then we can have different things like the risk grade, the number of findings, the underpayments, etc. Now, what this also does is it gives them real-time view into the findings that were captured. So we can see that there were 12 findings for this audit. I can click on any of these and I can view a breakdown of the finding and I can go and rectify it. So whilst the audit's running, they can actually proactively go and look and see what the findings are and start rectifying them in real time. The idea is that you'll get the opportunity to create different widgets. So depending on what you want to display to the customers, you can. It doesn't have to be audit related. It could be pretty much anything. If you just want to show work papers, for example, in advance and show the real invoices and how it was correlated to the ERP, you'll be able to do that. The idea is that you have the widgets, you can build whatever you want, and then you can display it. And you can have as many dashboards per client as you'd like. And even we went to the extent of even showing the documents that were being viewed for this audit, which is, for example, is these documents. But yeah, the idea is it's completely flexible. We can tailor it towards whatever customer you have, and it'll display everything there. Now, what powers this is the digital employees. We've got a wide range of digital employees. These are essentially digital employees that manage different teams. So it's basically, we have, for example, Finn. Finn has an entire team under him, and his entire team help him do the audit. We've got different agents that have been built, different employees that have been built. So we've got Booker, who does the bookkeeping. We've got Carpen, who's responsible for compliance. And essentially, as these employees run, they'll populate the data into the dashboards live, and we can get them to run on a schedule. We can get them to run on demand, whatever we want. So if I go into Finn, and I can give you guys a live demo. So we can see that he's been assigned one job. So I can create different jobs for Finn and he'll be able to work on them. But I've created one job where he just does an audit. At a glance, we can see things like the active jobs. So the jobs that are currently running, the ones that are pending input. So why we have pending input and why we think this is important is there's certain parts of the audit flow where we want manual review. We want a human to intervene to review the data and then perform an action. We don't want to get rid of that human in the loop interaction because we want to ensure that everything follows. So things like forming an opinion, you'd want a human to review it before we form an opinion. We can see the success rate. At the moment, it's at 35%, and that's largely because there's 13 items pending my input, so he hasn't completed them. And then we can see the total runs, which is 20. Additionally, I can go through and I can see all the previous runs that I've run. So there's a whole bunch, and then we can see some of them say input required. So if I click into it, I can see that we're hit a stage where he wants me to click approve or decline, and then I can go and I can read through what he's wanting me to approve or decline. So in saying that, I can go into a live run at the moment. So if I hit run, I can pick the venue name, and he'll start running. So now this is connected directly to the ERP. So at the moment for this one, it's Microsoft Business Central. So it's going to go into Microsoft Business Central, get all the data, and start performing the audit. Now this is going to take a few minutes to run. So while that runs, I'll go through the audit workflow. Now we're showing you an audit agent, but the idea is that there's any templated process we'll be able to follow. So before AI was introduced, you pretty much were reliant on code. So you were very reliant on very strict rules, as in if it's greater than 5 or less than 5, you know exactly where to go. Now that we have AI, we can actually start making decisions that require human comprehension using AI. So this is an example of Finn's team. So we can see he's got different people. So he's got Ben. So Ben will start the audit process. He'll continue. So he'll say to John, look at the business documents and generate an engagement letter. It goes to John, the other digital employee, and he'll start doing that. He'll get an output and he'll be like, yep, I want to make sure that I need a human to verify what I've done is correct and to approve or decline. And then we can have a different step. If it's approved, it follows this flow. If it's a decline, it just ends there. Then in the approval, he'll generate an audit plan and then pass it to Leon. Leon will go and verify that audit plan and compile all the data and do a second glance review and then pass it for another human to verify. And then as that goes through, it'll go all the way through to Vin. And what Vin will do is he'll start entering a cycle where he'll read the bank statement, for example. He'll read line 1, he'll go to the document store. So if that could be a system, it could be a bunch of invoices that we've uploaded. There's systems like Lightyear that extract data. Sometimes it's stored in the ERP itself, like Xero. You can store the invoices physically there. So wherever that invoice is available, it'll go find the invoice, make sure that it matches what's in the bank statement. If it does, it goes to the ERP and verifies what's in the ERP also valid, and then it'll go and add it to the findings report if there is a finding. And then it'll cycle through all the lines of the bank statements and then continue. Again, this is just an example of a process, but essentially any process. So building work papers, for example, we can do. So any repeatable process that requires humans in general that we weren't able to automate with code before, we can now automate using AI. And then as he progresses, he'll build that findings report, pass it off to Chris, and Chris is going to use that findings report to build the rest of the reports that he needs to build. Now, the very key thing is we'll also get an audit log. So if there is a finding present, we also want to be able to see the workings out, for example. So that audit log will show exactly what the AI did to get to that conclusion. So you're not just blindly trusting, oh, we've got a finding, let's believe that. We have the ability to audit it and verify how we got there. So it'll say we went to this bank statement, it'll link the bank statement, it'll link the line, and then I'll go to this document store, whether it's Xero or whether it's Lightyear. It'll give you a link to that specific invoice that it found. Then I'll go to the ERP and I'll give you a link to the ERP and I'll show you the values for each one, why they don't match or why they do match, and I'll give you everything. And doing this, it lets us test everything inside the ERP. So instead of taking a sample size and saying this is fine, we can test 100% of the data. Now, that's a quick overview here. If I go back to Finn, we'll see that he stopped and he said approval required. So I hit approve. I can review the plan that he's got. So I'll go through details around everything that he has. I can hit approve and then he'll continue. The cool thing about these jobs is they can run anywhere. So it doesn't just need to run on my laptop. He's asked me for another question, what kind of report I want. So I'll say I want a findings report and then I'll continue. So they can run anywhere. So while this is running, I can close my laptop, go to a different country, open a different laptop, and it'll still be working. It's completely asynchronous. So regardless of what I do, this is going to run in the background and we don't have to run one at a time. So you won't end up with a queue. So if I run 20 different audits at once, they'll all run at once. If I want to schedule 100 different audits to run at the exact same time, at the exact same day, it'll do that. And they'll all run asynchronously in parallel without any issues. And we can see that by looking at the run history. So all of these runs here where he's waited for me, these are all technically still running. They're just in a paused state. So once I go and provide that input, they just continue on. So they basically have a save state. They'll load the saved state, do the audit, and then get to the conclusion that we want. And this is exactly how all those dashboards are shown. So for this specific example, I've got it to generate a PDF document. So what I can do is I can hit download on that PDF, and then I should be able to drag and drop it into my browser. Just do that. And then we can see the audit that's been created. And this is the initial template that we have. This template is completely customizable. So in the TFX platform, you'll see there's a couple of different tabs here. There's brand voice and content style. And this is a section where we can completely customize everything. So with the report, we can customize the colors, we can customize how we want the layout to be, the footer, the copyright text, the heading fonts. And then with the brand as well, we can give it our own kind of phrasing. If we want to follow a specific phrasing, we should tell it what you don't want it to say, what you do want it to say. Everything is completely customizable. But for this example, we've told it to give you the risks. So if I go to a finding, follows this process, it gives you the finding, it gives you the impact, it gives you the root cause, the relevant UK standard, the exact template structure that we've provided. So if you have a specific structure or a specific template that you want to follow, and it's not just for audit, it's pretty much for any different digital agent that will build for you, we'll be able to follow that exact same structure, whether it's making it look fancy with different colors, or it's simply just changing the font style or changing the tone of voice. So this is a couple of pages, I think about 5 pages, and you can see this audit was completed in less than 5 minutes. This isn't run on a full set of data. There's just a small sample size. There's only about 6 days worth of data this audit was run on, but it runs very, very quickly and it analyzes every single thing in that ERP. And back to here. Okay. And then lastly, with the digital employees, we can customize every aspect. So if Finn starts performing poorly, I have the ability to give him a performance review and tell him, you've done this poorly, and he'll start to learn. So when we first started building Finn, and over the last 6 to 7 weeks, he's improved around 700%. So he started very poorly, as in he had some issues at the start. Given that continuous feedback and that continuous learning, he starts to learn from all the feedback that we've given him, and he's improved 700%. And that will go for however long you run Finn.